Lindsey Graham, one of the saddest figures in American politics. And, before introducing this story, I did just have a little anecdote. As I've told you all and covered on the show, we were in the spin room at the debate. And so I got to talk to a bunch of the people. I have posted videos of Vivek Ramaswamy and myself debating briefly, Byron Donalds, Elise Stefanik. Got to talk to Jasmine Crockett and some others. And one of the people that I didn't get a good moment, right? I didn't have a chance to really talk with him, but had a brief encounter with was Lindsey Graham. And I'm talking about Jaden and Cole, producer Jaden and Cole, who were there, and myself were just shocked by how, looking into that man's eyes, there is some deep, deep despair. And I don't say that to mock, but I think genuinely him being so dishonest and violating his principles in service of Trump, someone he knows to be bad but he chooses to serve anyways, is deteriorating his conscience. And it's causing him to be full of despair. Just truly, something about his look was shocking by how drained of life's joy he seems to be. Okay, with that being said, here he is on Face the Nation, and he gets asked about Trump posting or reposting someone calling for Liz Cheney to be put in front of a military tribunal and tried for treason, which is just barely even a dog whistle for execution. And Lindsey Graham does not have a good response.
You want to make this about policy, and that's a fair point to make as a U.S. senator. But in recent weeks, former President Trump on his social media has been amplifying calls, circulating posts, calling for televised military tribunals. That's his phrase that he amplified on his social media for people like former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. You say he's not going to be on a revenge tour, but he's been posting on his social media about not only taking revenge, but having televised military tribunals. And you're someone who has served this country in uniform. Do you agree with his push and amplification of those proposals?
Here's what I know. I know we're not going to have televised tribunal trials of Liz Cheney or anybody else. Here's what I do believe. I do believe that the country is at an inflection point. This is the most important election literally in decades, maybe ever. If you want to change the course we're on, you need to go back to President Trump. Policy.
You want to make this about...
So I have more clips to play for you of some related things, but first, it drives me crazy. It's always the same thing with Trump and his defenders. They get to completely wave away everything he says and a lot of what he does under the umbrella of, I don't know. I don't think it's serious. And walk with me down this road, okay? I promise we'll get back to some more interview moments, but walk with me down this, because I think, to me, this is a pretty meaningful contradiction, but I'm interested to hear what you all think. So, on one end, they have been for a while now obsessing over what you would call non-policy things with Biden, which I think we can and should do both. I think it's perfectly fair to discuss the rhetoric, the style, the character. And then they say these more often verbal mishaps or the poor debate performance is indicative of something in here, right? So in that moment, the rhetoric, the actions of the mouth, in the case of Trump, the actions of the fingers with posting things, but those sorts of non-policy things are important to them. Because again, what's coming out of the mouth, if it's not ideal, would be indicative of what's going on in the brain, right? That's their argument with Biden. And as I'll continue to say, the concern that was sparked because of the debate, fair. That conversation, I think, is justified, that currently in the pro-democracy movement we're having. But they say, don't worry about what's coming out of Trump's mouth. Don't try to connect that to what's going on in his brain, his intentions, and the derangement in there. Because that's just, that's not important. Focus on policy. Be consistent. Do both. You say we have to answer for, we have to advocate on behalf of the candidacy of Biden, including those moments, because of they're important. Well, do the same thing, Lindsey. Be consistent. Because your whole argument against Biden right now is weak on the policy, but is heavy on the non-policy things, namely his communication. And I'll say one final time before rounding this out, that I think it's good to do both, okay? But you want to just do policy, Lindsey? Let's just do policy. Because without going through the whole list again, Biden's administration has been overseeing such a successful period of time of governance. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing them taking over the disaster that was left by Trump and things getting a lot better with issues. Trump's policy led to a worse response to COVID than we could have imagined. Medical professionals saying we lost hundreds of thousands of extra lives that we didn't have to because of the poor governance. When it was time for him to lead and then implement policy that reflected a good leader, he failed. And then Biden came into office and was able to govern much more effectively, overseeing super impressive economic recovery that just dominated our competitors across the world. Crime plummeting after that huge spike that started under Trump. Not to mention one legislative success after another, doing things like investing in infrastructure. So that policy record, however you feel about the candidacy of Biden and the current doubts that are going on, is undeniably, unequivocally better than Trump's policy record. His one major achievement being, hey, he cut taxes for rich people. Woo! So if you only want to talk about policy, then just talk about policy. But they don't want to talk about just policy with Biden, but they want to talk about just policy with Trump, because what comes out of Trump's mouth is even more frightening than anything you could possibly imagine with Biden. Like him saying terminate the Constitution, like him saying the government should go after media outlets that he doesn't like him saying that he's going to be a dictator on day one, like him saying that his enemies like Liz Cheney should have a military tribunal, like him saying that the January 6th Select Committee should be in jail, etc. If you appreciate the work that we do to put together the show every day, a way you can show that and help us continue to grow is by clicking the subscribe button. It's easy, it's free, but it makes all the difference. Back to the video. Now, here is Marco Rubio doing a very similar thing. The president of the Heritage Foundation, who now I'm blanking on the name of, Kevin something, he is crafting Project 2025 that Trump's definitely going to use to hit the ground running whenever he starts second term, if he were to. And Marco Rubio also doesn't want to answer for something that this president of a prominent conservative organization said.
What a Donald Trump next White House would do. There is a conservative effort. It's called Project 2025, and it includes several former Trump administration officials. They are arguing, and they have in their platform, if you will, to purge thousands of civil servants from federal agencies, vastly expand the power of the presidency. And I want you to listen to what one of the leaders of Project 2025 said this week.
We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Are you comfortable with that?
Well, he's not running for president, is he? I mean, our candidate's Donald Trump. I didn't say Donald Trump say that. Donald Trump's running on common sense, on restoring common sense versus the lunacy of the last 4 years and the far left and the shadow government that now is running our country with Joe Biden as its figurehead.
Oh, gosh, the shadow government. My rear end, sir. Yeah, so, oh, gosh. That distracted me so much. But what he was saying is the Heritage Foundation president is not running for president of the United States, and Trump is. And Trump's running on common sense, like a retribution platform, like even if we do go to his economic plan, a 10% tariff on all imports, which would spike inflation. His common sense governance, like saying that the media outlets he doesn't like should be targeted, have their licenses revoked. Common sense governance, like the DOJ should be directed directly by him, unlike what Biden has done, which is staying independent. But Trump should be able to leverage his Department of Justice to go after people he doesn't like. Common sense governance, like rolling back reproductive rights even further. Common sense governance, like using the military in unconstitutional ways to crush demonstrations against him. What I'm going through, of course, is Project 2025. Deteriorating, destroying the separation of church and state. So no, the Heritage Foundation president's not running for president, but he's crafting the plan for the person that you want to be president to govern, for the people who would be replacing every one of those career civil servants instead with Trump loyalists, so Trump can do whatever he'd like. Then, on my sort of, if you want to focus on policy, let's talk about policy sort of statement, invitation to MAGA. Either I want you to answer for everything Trump says, and then we'll have to have an honest conversation about everything that Biden says, including when what he says concerns people, given mishaps, which I'm willing to do both. But I want you to be willing to do both, and then we can have that discussion. But Bernie Sanders is making the case that sort of goes along with this, which is, yeah, Biden's old. Yeah, debate performance, cause concern. But here's the stakes, and here's what we want to get done.
Politically, can he count on you to be on the campaign trail for him this summer and fall? Can he count on your support?
I've already done 6 events in Wisconsin. We've been to New York. I've been to Ohio. And let me say this, and maybe the most important point, Bob, I want to make this morning. What we are talking about now is not a Grammy Award contest for Best Singer. Biden is old. He's not as articulate as he once was. I wish he could jump up the steps on Air Force One. He can't. What we have got to focus on is policy. Whose policies have and will benefit the vast majority of the people in this country? Who has the guts to take on corporate America? Who is talking about expanding Medicare so we cover dental, hearing, and vision? Who's talking about raising the cap on the taxes that people pay into Social Security so we can raise Social Security benefits and extend the life of Social Security for 75 years? Who's talking about a permanent child tax credit to cut childhood poverty in America by 50%? Those are the issues he's talked about. He's got to bring them up in the floor. He's got to promise the American people that if they give him a Democratic Senate, a Democratic House, re-elect him, he's going to do that in the first 100 days. That is what I think the American people want.
No.
So, again, and I know if you're a regular viewer of the show, Luke, you've said this already, you might be saying. But I don't know which one of you sounds like that, but just imagine. But so many people watch videos for the first time every day, right? So got to make sure they know my framework here. I don't think we have to ignore real discussions, concerns, doubts that are going on within the Democratic Party about the candidacy of Biden to also make a fact-based, accurate case for the record of Biden. And as long as he's the guy, what could happen in a second term? And while MAGA seems so incapable of defending the words that leave Trump's mouth, because the stances that are indicated from those words are so horrific, like Trump calling for the termination of the Constitution, I'll say as many times as I possibly can. Seems to be something we forget too often. I'm able to derive the stances that are way better from the words we hear from Biden on a daily basis. And so that is a part of this discussion. As much as all the other media conversations are a part of this, that's a part of this that's so crucial. These policies impacting millions of people's lives. So let's make sure we also center that in this debate and discussion, because that matters a lot. And Lindsey Graham says, let's talk about policy, so let's do it. Because I can tell you, if you poll by issue, the policy, proposals, and record of Democrats, it just absolutely annihilates the popularity of Republican proposals. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments. If you want to get an extra episode of this show daily, you can do so by clicking the join button below.